Of Cyriss. Astronomy was one of several fields of study which saw a resurgence during the Reconstruction following the Corvus Treaties. A number of new observatories were erected across Western Eberron, funded by universities, science-minded patrons, and scholarly organizations. The Fraternal Order of Wizardry boasted its own skilled astronomers, first and foremost among them being Adolphus Agamor of Orvin. Agamor earned his fame by helping revolutionize optics, innovations initially applied to the viewing apparatuses of steamjacks. Most of his peers paid little attention to his accomplishments in astronomy. Magus Agamor was the first to apply certain principles of alchemy and mechanica to the apparatus of astronomy, creating augmented telescopes. Working with others at several Signaran universities, he sought a better understanding of the celestial bodies beyond Caen. He is credited with being the first to apply alchemic glazes to the telescope optics that filtered light, as well as with developing a precise machined clockwork mechanism to orientate and focus the larger instruments. Through these innovations, he made unprecedented observations of the celestial realm. It was with one such device that in 283 AR, Agamor sighted a previously unknown celestial object. He theorized that this distant planet on a highly elliptical orbit far from Caen's sun, and dubbed it the Dark Wanderer. His findings were initially dismissed, largely because the reported object was all but invisible without his newer filtering techniques. In time, others were able to replicate his methods and confirm the existence of this planetary body. Meanwhile, Agamor began to experience inexorable visions and dreams. Through these, he became convinced that this newly discovered planet was named Cyriss, a name shared with a divine being communicating through his dreams. Those he told of this feared he had succumbed to madness. Agamor's reputation thus suffered, such that he became a pariah amongst the arcane and astronomical societies of his day. The discovery of this new divinity, of an entirely new concept of the universe, and the powers inhabiting it no less, was not easily comprehended. Yet this would prove to be the revelation of Cyriss, the first sign of our awakening. We had reached this vital point in our scientific and arcane development, when we could at last be aware of the hidden goddess, whose plans and goals were far too vast for mortal minds to grasp. Over the years, others who had witnessed the Dark Wanderer began to experience similar dreams, lending credence to Agamor's claims. Founding the cult of Cyriss. Agamor and others who had heard the whispers of the goddess began to meet, and from these discussions arose the cult of Cyriss. Initial members were drawn largely from the esoteric cabals within the Fraternal Order of Wizardry, including those seeking to reconcile mathematical principles with arcane formulae. Many of these individuals had already earned reputations as outsiders within the order. A widely held belief among them was that the Steamjack Cortex, the very foundation of the order's wealth and influence, was a fundamentally flawed mechanism overtly reliant on chaotic arcane interactions. The very traits that had alienated these great minds from their peers were highly valued commodities by the new faith, which revered scientific method and the application of reason. Interest in Cyriss quickly developed among fields such as abstract mathematics, engineering, and astronomy. Astronomers were particularly interested in spreading papers on Cyriss, as their number included several learned members of the aristocracy who were also knowledgeable in the natural sciences. The notion of a divinity governing the fundamental laws of reality seized the imagination of Signar's intellectia and soon spread to the other nations. By 290, the first major gathering of the cult convened. At this secret summit, members established many of the tenets of the faith and nominated its earliest priests. Esteemed for the clarity of his visions, Agamor was key in this endeavor and was among those first nominated. After much discussion, the cult convened members and determined 3 basic tiers of the priesthood: Optifex, Enumerators, and Fluxions. The Optifex, the most numerous, would be as much laborers and craftsmen as priests. A member of the sect could remain at this level indefinitely, for promotion would not only require mastery in his field, but also a demonstrated ability to lead and instruct others. The next level, Enumerators, would manage the daily tasks of the faith and oversee its works. Above the Enumerators would be the Fluxions, tasked to lead the temples. Fluxions would be few in number, and they would safeguard the cult's highest mysteries. Knowing the perils of a worship few could understand, the founding priests stressed secrecy and discretion. In these early years, their first priority was to gain a better understanding of the goddess who had revealed herself to them. Ultimately, in the years of this summit, Agamor proved to be too fragile of mind to endure the implications of the goddess's appearance. In 298, he isolated himself and put aside all other obligations. Continuous meditations on nature and divine order began to take their toll on him, and he was becoming increasingly erratic in both speech and writing. Unknown to his peers, Agamor had been obsessed with building a machine of tremendous size and complexity. Sadly, he died in 303, having apparently fallen into the massive gears of this unfinished apparatus. Those who found this scene were shocked to see that he had covered the walls of his house with fragmentary notations, labyrinthian formulae, and incomprehensible scrawling. It would be later to be discovered that these writings were not the nonsensical ranting that they at first appeared to be. The temple as workshop. From the beginning, our temples have not simply been houses of worship, but places of fabrication, analysis, and experimentation. The goddess cares little for empty prayers, preferring devotion through scientific exploration and the refinement of process and form. Challenging oneself through the application of abstract science is an act of prayer in and of itself, as is advancing the state of mathematics, astronomy, or engineering. Very quickly, those who awaken to the goddess exceed former engineering limits and succeed in remarkable innovations. To recognize and take full advantage of this new level of mechanical mastery, the Convergence created the role of Forge Master, to be conferred upon each temple's most accomplished engineer and fabricator. In 311, the ranking priests of the cult collaborated to write the principles of geomagnetic energy, a fundamental thesis that would soon unlock an ample power source for our temple workshops and their machinery. It had been discovered that certain subtle arcane energies flowed beneath the surface of Cain, collected into invisible channels connected to significant geographical features like rivers and mountain ranges. Although this energy proved difficult to harness despite its demonstrable presence, the possibilities of its use spurred considerable study. Subterranean energy accumulators were soon built at sites where strong flows converged. Though at first this had few practical applications beyond simply powering systems like temple illumination, the use of this resource remained limited until the invention of the astronomical nexus in 326. These tower-like machines serve as focusing machines and mechanisms by creating internal alignments based on tracking celestial conjunctions. Close analysis of Agamor's last writings and the construct that took his life proved key in the development of this invention, suggesting that he himself had been attempting to harness these energies all along. Once the tower of an astronomic nexus was properly aligned, the influx of energies from collected subterranean accumulators magnified exponentially. Our mechanics and engineers soon learned how to transform this energy to operate a variety of apparatuses. Ready access to essentially limitless energy at several major temples spurred invention, allowing for the construction of machines of a size and complexity previously thought infeasible. By 330, experiments related to transforming energy resulted in several breakthroughs, including advances in voltaic and electrostatic charging. These enabled the early occult to transition away from burning fuel in order to power engines, freeing them from the reliance on coal. Locations where geomagnetic flows converged became preferred sites for the most advanced temple workshops. Tremendous accumulators and generators within the confines of major temple facilities provided ample energy that could be broadcasted to power machine guardians and workers, such as vectors and servitors. The sex engineers developed methods for long-term storage of these energies in reserves, useful for machines required to perform tasks away from these facilities. During the early era, the leading priests debated on how they should propagate and control the many advancements innovated in different temples. They agreed that old temples should benefit from the new techniques, but determined it prudent to limit familiarity with these techniques to the awakened faithful. This prompted the implementation of the Rubric of Mysteries in 320 to formalize a hierarchy of secrets within the priesthood. Lore of the goddess and the work of the faith would be kept from outsiders and only incrementally revealed to members as they proved their dedication and readiness. Certain works would be compartmentalized so that junior members could access portions as necessary for their own labors without needing to understand the greater whole their efforts supported. Addendum: Cosmology of Cyriss. Priests of Cyriss prefer to apply scientific methodology to their understanding of their faith. Given there is much about the goddess that can't be perceived, tested, or verified, these matters are omitted from formal doctrine. There is significant conjecture about the cosmology of Cyriss that does not appear on the record. Priests of Cyriss think it's vital to separate theory from fact, and the facts known about the goddess are few and far between. The priesthood refuses to discuss many questions about her nature, even internally. On the topic of cosmology, the priests assert only that Cyrus's psyche inhabits the world named after her. In the same way, the will of other gods exists in Yurkan. While the planet is the seat of her conscious will, her influence and power extend to all things and is connected to the laws of reality itself. All parts of reality are aspects of a vast machine continually being perfected by the clockwork goddess, who loathes disorder. That which is closest to perfection and flawlessness is closest to Cyriss, while which is flawed and of poor functioning are furthest. This paradigm applies to the condition of life itself, which Cyrissists believe to be fundamentally imperfect. Nothing that is alive can be as pure or as true as the goddess as a harmonious machine. The only aspect of the living that the sect believes capable of perfection is the seat of thought itself, the soul. Even this immortal essence must be refined over time, and it is this process towards perfection in both one's labors and one's self that motivates the faithful. This desire for self-improvement is similar to the certain Mauryan beliefs, but the preference for the ordered perfection of the machine over the chaos of life is unique to the worshippers of Cyriss. End addendum. Shin Tiger Curl here, that dude in the straw hat, saying thank you for watching my video. If you like what you see, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and that little bell so you can be informed of my next video. As you know, this is an ad-free channel, so if you want to support the channel, head down below to my Patreon in the description at patreon.com/ShinTigerCurl. Every little bit helps, even $1.